And now, a Scared for Reals Extra.
Hey, it's Chris O'Neill.
And Adam Perry.
All right, the new Joker movie is out. Folie, Deux. I think that's kind of how you say it in French.
Sure. I never took French in high school, so...
Oh, you didn't? You've read many Batman comics, right?
Sure.
Well, as you saw with the original Joker that came out 5 years ago, nothing like the Batman universe, was it?
No.
And that was the purpose.
They took the DC character and kind of did their own thing with it.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it was... at that time, the highest grossing R-rated film, which got surpassed this year with Deadpool and Wolverine.
Right.
So I wasn't a huge fan. You'd think with Martin Scorsese being involved with the Joker that I would actually like it, but I wasn't a huge fan of it. Before we go any further with the Joker, Folie, Deux, just remember to like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, because then you'll get notified when a new episode drops. And by the way, you can reach out to us through Facebook, Instagram, X, @ScaredForReals. Very simple handle to remember. But yeah, comment below. I don't know if you've seen either Joker movie. I don't know why I torture myself in watching Joker, Folie, Deux. There were some good aspects of the movie, I thought. Just like the original Joker, there are some interesting things. Because if you remember, Todd Phillips based it upon a couple of Martin Scorsese movies, The King of Comedy and Taxi Driver.
Right.
I don't know if you've seen either one of those movies, Taxi Driver.
I've seen Taxi Driver. I haven't seen King of Comedy.
Disturbing.
Yes.
King of Comedy, I would say, is probably just as disturbing as Taxi Driver, maybe even more so, especially what we're living with now.
Yeah.
It's pretty twisted. So you can imagine, you can combine those two movies together. You even got the star of both of those films, De Niro, in there getting his brains blown out at the end.
Right.
The movie left a bad taste in my mouth. I mean, you can't fault Joaquin Phoenix. He's one of the most brilliant actors.
Yeah.
I mean, he's stated it, and he makes a more sympathetic approach to the Joker.
Sure.
More so than we've ever seen before. And again, people try to compare him to Heath Ledger and Jack Nicholson. Basically, three different Jokers, three different universes.
Yeah.
Tim Burton's Batman is like the original comic books. Bob Kane shows up in the movie as a cameo.
I mean, I would even argue Cesar Romero's from the old TV show is more comic book than
Jack Nicholson's.
I mean, if we're talking comic book, I mean the Joker, his origin story is a tragic story. So for those of you who don't know, who are not engrossed in the comic world, the backstory that was, I mean, this was not the original backstory. The Joker originally was just a character Bob Kane put in there because he needed Batman to... But over time, other writers gave him a backstory, and the generally accepted backstory is that he was a failing comedian who couldn't provide for his... family,
right?
And so he starts committing crimes on the side to
make money,
and he's known as the character of the Red Hood. And then during an encounter with Batman, he falls into a vat of toxic chemicals, which transforms him into what we now know as the Joker.
Yeah, and actually, you can say that the Joker himself was inspired by a German expressionist film, The Man Who Laughs,
100%.
Conrad Veidt.
Bob Kane has admitted, the late Bob Kane, when he was admitted that that's where the inspiration drew from.
Right. It's hard not to. I mean, Conrad Veidt, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, he looks just like what we know as the Joker. Just like it. And
it's such a natural, that's the thing. You look at a lot of silent movies, a lot of people say it's over the top. But you look at Conrad Veidt and you look at Lon Chaney, very natural performances.
Sure.
And some of the performances, especially by Conrad Veidt, who played very disturbing characters, seemed a little too close to reality.
And again, bringing it back to the Joker, I mean, if you look at some of the very first appearances of the Joker, he looked exactly like Conrad Veidt.
Oh, absolutely.
So I
mean, we've had so many different versions of the Joker, even the Suicide Squad movie with Jared Leto. A lot of people hated that. Again, it's like there's just so many Jokers, and we've come to the point where it's oversaturation when it comes to the comic books. And again, the Joker is not your typical comic book movie, because it has nothing to do with the comic books.
Yep.
I don't even think, your Joker comic book history. Arthur Fleck, was that his character's name? I don't think so.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know myself. I'm not well versed in the comic book world. I did have at one point all of the DC Joker, and I think I vaguely remember the chemical vat thing. Of course, Tim Burton has. When it comes to Joker history, Tim Burton is the one that actually has come closest to capturing the original Joker in a sense, especially his transformation. Mm-hmm. Now, Jack Nicholson is not doing the failed comedian thing, and Todd Phillips actually brings the failed comedian aspect part of the story. But Arthur Fleck, as we saw in the 2019 Joker, he's not a family man. He is this very isolated, psychotic man who's deeply disturbed. And that's one thing about the Joker. And, we've had conversations with Todd Teal and your brother, mental illness in movies. There's not a lot.
No.
I mean, Taxi Driver covers it. Obviously, the Joker, King of Comedy to a certain extent. But you really have to think hard. What movies really tackle the actual subject and how someone feels who's mentally ill? And the Joker definitely captures that, whether you hate the movie or you love it.
Sure.
It's been there's very few movies in the past 5 years that have divided people more than the Joker.
Yes.
Because it's a hugely successful movie, but how many people actually love the movie?
Right. Well, again, you put a title like The Joker on,
right.
People are going in expecting some sort of Batman.
Right.
But...
and there are some cool Easter eggs, like meeting the Wayne family there. Yeah. There's a couple of interesting scenes. And even this movie, the second Joker movie, there are some interesting Easter eggs in that movie as well.
Right.
Which we're going to talk about. But
just to go back when you asked me about the Joker's real name.
Okay.
It seems like there's two popular names that throughout the comic book history that they've gone back and forth between. And that the first one was Jack Oswald White.
Okay, I do remember Jack Oswald White. Okay.
And then the other very popular name that was in the comic books and more notably in Tim Burton, Jack Napier.
Jack Napier.
In Tim Burton's movie, he was called.
I forgot about. See, I haven't seen that Tim Burton movie in years.
Yeah.
Probably should revisit it. It is a pretty decent.
Yeah. So Jack Oswald White and Jack Napier are the two most common real names of the Joker, and then you got obviously Arthur Fleck from these movies.
Right. So how do you? That's the thing. We talk about sequels all the time, Adam. Mm-hmm. They're obvious cash grabs. There's just no denying that's what sequels are. Studios want to make more money. There's nothing wrong with that. I understand it. I don't necessarily agree with it or like it, though. Mm-hmm. In most cases, you don't need a sequel. That's just my opinion. I know if we all had the same opinion, it would be a boring world, wouldn't it? But this one definitely did not need a sequel. It really didn't.
I mean, I agree to disagree only because especially when you're talking about a character like the Joker with an over 80-year history.
Right.
There is so much stories and so many different avenues.
Right.
So if you can write a decent sequel, why not take it? Why not take the chance to do it? I mean, there's just so much content, and so to me, I understand sequels are a cash grab and they play fanfare most of the time, but if you have a good story, and
that's the key
to tell, and you can execute it well, then why not? I have not seen this second Joker. I mean, it just came out.
Right.
I'm not hearing good things about it, so that just tells me like you have an 80-year legacy that you're messing up or you're not executing enough.
Well. Now the thing is with Joker Folie Deux, and by the way, Folie Deux, if you want to know the English translation, it's delusion or mental illness shared by two people in a close association.
Okay.
And I love how the Substance official movie page actually shared that definition of Folie Deux, which is they're showing their support for the new Joker movie too.
Cool.
And of course, the substance, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, has a lot to do with psychological problems.
Yeah.
So this movie definitely, you know how the first one I was talking about how it divided audiences?
Right.
This one is dividing audiences just as much, maybe not even more so.
Yeah.
Because there's people who actually, I've read that it's not as bad as they thought it would be. And then you get these people who, like, I hate musicals, which, okay, that's your opinion, but like, why didn't you like the movie other than it's a musical? Yeah, there is, that's the thing. I was expecting more music in there, but there wasn't as much singing as I thought there would be in there.
Right.
But anyway, let's break down. Okay, spoiler alert. We're going to be discussing Joker Folie Deux from start to finish, which means if you haven't seen the movie yet, you may want to hit the pause button and then go watch it if you really want to watch it. Again, you're gonna this is like, people talk about Eyes Wide Shut. That's one movie I love, and people thought that was divisive. Again, the past 5-6 years, I can't think of a movie more divisive than the Joker. Right. I just can't think of one. I'm sure there's there's movies that are divisive, but the Joker, I remember it grossed a crap load of money, but man, oh man, there was people who really loved it and thought it was one of the greatest films ever. I'm not one of them. I really didn't care for it too much.
I didn't care for it much either. Again, here's the where you're gonna find pushback in an experiment like this. Taking an iconic character,
right,
and just kind of doing your own thing, is you're gonna upset, the hardcore fans who want to see a Joker movie. And now with the second one, you're doubling down and you're adding Harley Quinn, which is just as beloved, if not even more beloved, than the Joker himself.
Before Suicide Squad, honestly, I had no idea who Harley Quinn was.
Harley Quinn made her appearance in 1992.
Okay.
Through the Batman animated series, and she blew up.
Really?
In the they started adding her to the comics. They gave her a backstory.
So she actually showed up in the animated series?
Yes, she was.
Okay.
She was just a character for Batman the animated series, the 1992 cartoon.
Right.
And she was so popular she blew up into, now she's got her own comics, her own TV shows, there's Harley Quinn everywhere. She's just as popular as the Joker. So now what you're doing, you got a movie that in the first one you literally just took Joker by name and made your own movie, and now you're taking not only Joker, you're taking Harley Quinn.
But they never really call her Harley Quinn in the movie. That's the interesting. Yeah. That's one point I wanted to bring up. But
well, I mean, her real name's Harleen Quinzel.
Yeah. But they don't even
in the comic.
They only really refer to her as Lee in the movie. That was, I think one time they say Harleen, which is like, oh, okay,
yeah.
But other than that, it's like it's a completely different character.
Yeah, yeah.
Now Harley Quinn in the Batman series. What was her backstory?
So her backstory is basically she is a psychiatrist who gets assigned the Joker in Arkham Asylum.
Okay, so Suicide Squad was correct.
Yeah, and basically the Joker does what the Joker does. He sees a weakness in her, exploits her, causing her to fall in love with him and obsess about him, and she ends up helping him break him out, and then they become partners in crime.
Gotcha.
I mean, that's
so Suicide Squad, the movie was actually
Suicide Squad got it pretty well. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So.
That's why I want to ask, because, again, we've gotten how many, 4 or 5 different versions of the Joker. So.
Yeah, that's the most, in the comic book world, that's the most accepted origin story of Harley Quinn. Well, and again, just like in movies and everything else, there are comic spin-offs, there are graphic novel spin-offs that might change an origin a little bit just to suit the particular story. But again, the most widely accepted and like the generic backstory of Harley Quinn is she's Joker's psychiatrist. Joker exploits her. She becomes his puppet, or she's totally obsessed and in love with him.
See, this movie throws all that out the window.
Well, I've figured.
We'll talk about that.
That's probably why everybody's upset.
Well, I again, the first movie divided people, and it wasn't just changing a lot. I mean, Todd Phillips made it very clear, and so did Joaquin Phoenix. This is not the comic book Joker. We wanted to make our own version. So unless you live under a rock, you're walking into a movie knowing that it's not based upon the comic books. I mean, it's not. I mean, it's clearly stated on millions of occasions. I mean, again, if you don't watch any publicity, you ignore all that, you may not know, but most people do know that you're not getting that. So the fact that the movie is still divisive after that. Anyway, Folie Deux, it actually starts off kind of cool, actually. You get this little animated short sequence.
Oh, cool.
You know, Joker's impersonated by his shadow. It's kind of clever. I like the animation at the beginning.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, this is not a bad way to start things off, but it also gets, like, the first one touched on his fantasy world.
Yeah.
And the movie definitely delves more deeper into the fantasy aspect of Arthur Fleck's character. So he takes his place to perform his singing number for a TV show and then abandons him on stage half undressed before 3 policemen arrive and beat him. So you got like the shadow of the Joker doing all the work while the Joker himself is captured. So
yeah,
it has a lot to do with the plot of Folie Deux. So it takes place in 1983. Arthur Fleck is at the Arkham State Hospital. Again, Easter egg.
Yep.
Perfect Easter egg for Gotham. He's awaiting his trial for the crimes he committed 2 years prior. You got Catherine Keener. I don't know if you remember her, Adam, from Being John Malkovich.
Yep.
Yeah, she shows up in this movie. She actually does a good... I mean, she's always pretty good in her movies, but, you know, I wish she was in better movies.
Right.
But she has plans to argue that Arthur has a dissociative identity disorder and that his Joker personality is responsible for the crimes. Kind of like Psycho, where the mother side took over. And so she's trying to argue the Joker side. And you kind of, I don't know, I sympathize with her because this guy is deeply disturbed. It doesn't matter if he has a dissociative disorder or not. The guy's mentally got problems, and he should not be out on the streets.
Yeah.
You know, when New York and a lot of other places closed down all these mental institutions, I think that created a lot of problems.
Sure.
But we're not going to get into political stuff here.
No, I mean...
So she's arguing that, and at a music therapy session, you know, and we must say that one of the prison guards is played by the brilliant character actor Brendan Gleeson, whom we talked about. The guy finally got an Oscar nomination a couple of years ago. The Irish actor, he was brilliant in the Banshees of Inisherin, and he was just so he's good. He's been good for decades, constantly churning out some difficult character performances. But it was good to see him as the prison guard in this movie. Yeah. Again, he's not the nicest guy.
Oh, no.
But you get to hear him singing some, which is kind of cool.
Nice.
I mean, everyone sings in this movie, but the guy actually has a pretty good singing voice. Mm-hmm. So he brings Arthur over to this music therapy session. For some reason, I can't remember why he had to go over there. And again, I think this is kind of forced in kind of a, I don't know, not the best way to introduce the Harley Quinn character. But Harleen Lee Quinzel is singing along and captures Arthur's attention.
Yeah.
And Lee actually confides to Arthur that she grew up in the same neighborhood as he did, had an abusive father who died in a car crash, and was imprisoned after burning down her parents' apartment building. She also expresses her admiration for his crimes and his personality. Huh. So it's an interesting way they meet, and again, nowhere near anywhere in the comic books.
Yeah.
So during a film screening, you know, she's trying to she's doing a lot of work encouraging his Joker side to come out more.
Okay.
I mean, he's just wants to be Arthur, and she's kind of manipulating him in a way. Mm-hmm. to try to become the Joker because that's who she loves is the Joker. And he gets manipulated kind of, and she sets the whole screening room on fire, and they try to escape and everything. Obviously, it doesn't work out.
Right. Yep.
And it's a very weird scene. And again, you kind of wonder if this is fantasy or if it's real. But she visits him in solitary confinement. Somehow she's able to see him. So again, you don't know. You kind of get the impression that this might actually be an illusion.
Wow.
But she visits him to say she is being released to avoid his influence, but promises to attend his trial. And they get it on in solitary confinement. They literally have a sex scene in there.
All right.
So during an interview with a TV personality, Arthur sings to Lee through the TV screen and deepening her love for him. So on the day of the trial, another Easter egg, assistant district attorney at this time, Harvey Dent.
All right.
He calls witnesses who dismiss Arthur's claims of insanity. And during a break, his attorney, Catherine Keener's character, reveals that Lee was actually a psychiatry student who grew up in the Upper East Side, and her dad, a doctor, is alive. Furthermore, she voluntarily committed herself at Arkham. She checked herself out, never burned down an apartment building. When Arthur confronts Lee about this, she does confess that her lies were an effort to get close to him, but also tells him that she is pregnant.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
And has moved into his old apartment building to create a home for them. He doesn't want to move back to his apartment building, by the way. He's just not into that.
Yep.
But at the trial the next day, Arthur fires his defense attorney and represents himself. And after bringing Arthur's...
That's always a smart thing to do.
Yeah. You remember the first one? There's this Puddles character that he saves because it was the only one that was ever nice to him.
Yeah.
Because the guy's freaked out, and there's a lot of PTSD references in both this movie and that movie. So Gary Puddles and his neighbor, they both took to the stand. And Gary actually reveals, he's still afraid. He's constantly afraid, and he has a hard time being at work because Arthur was the only one that was nice to him.
Yeah.
So again, a sequel. There are things that feel forced, and the Puddles thing, and
right.
the whole Harley Quinn thing was kind of just seemed really forced. So getting back to the plot here, Harvey Dent rests his case. Arthur, he's affected by Puddles' testimony. He offers no defense, although during his speech he mentions the Arkham guards negatively. So Brendan Gleeson and his comrades are watching that, and they're not too happy with him. Because all this it's like the O.J. Simpson trial. It's on TV for everyone to see.
Right.
And everyone's glued to it just like they were with the O.J. Simpson trial. Had a lot to say. I as much as I dislike these Joker movies, Adam, I must say Todd Phillips does a great job in reflecting society and how they really get obsessed with these serial killers.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of that. Why don't we focus on trying to solve the crimes rather than delving into the psychology of the insane guy who goes and kills a bunch of people? I'm not a fan of that because I know in their way they're thinking we're going to try to find out what makes these people tick, but there's a morbid fascination with these people, and I think society takes it way too far. And that's what, movies like this, Natural Born Killers,
right?
Even Silence of the Lambs to a certain degree. These people are not heroes.
Well, I don't think people look at them and herald them as heroes.
I'm not, because I know you watch that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
too.
no, I know. I love true crime, and I certainly don't look at these people as heroes. But
some people do, though. There's a weird...
Yeah, I mean, a small fraction of them. A really small fraction of them that, they celebrate the serial killers and they'll buy merchandise and stuff like that.
But I think the media has a lot more to do with it than the actual psyche of the people, because it's like the media just seems to exploit these serial killers in a lot of cases and then tries to put them up on a pedestal in a way. Inadvertently. I don't think they try to do it that way,
but again, it's it's just like any movie that we talk about, Chris. There's an audience for true crime and trying to know and understand these monsters. And I mean, why wouldn't you play to that? Why wouldn't you?
But Todd Phillips is more like critiquing how society, the media treats the serial killers. That was his whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, like I'll agree with you to the degree. Like, say, say heaven forbid there's another mass shooting.
Yeah.
All right. I totally agree with. Don't put the guy's mugshot on TV. Don't say his name repeatedly.
But they do.
They do. But there's a double-edged sword to it. I don't think they're trying to turn him into a folk hero. I think they're just trying, just relay information, which is why you hear the repeated. But morally, should they be showing his picture? No. If you're just trying to report the news and give all the details you can, you kind of have to.
Right. So getting back to the plot here, Arthur Fleck, he's defending himself. He goes on a tirade in his closing argument. He mentions how bad the prison guards have treated him and other prisoners. So when he returns to Arkham, he is taken to the showers room by head guard, Brendan Gleeson and his two guards. In retaliation for what he said about them on TV, he's beaten and violently stripped of his clothes. The film then cuts to him being dragged to a cell, still in full makeup with his jacket back on, but no pants. And there's a inmate friend of his that kind of looks up to him and stuff like that, verbally confronts the guards himself. And, Brendan Gleeson does what Brendan Gleeson does best in his movies, goes a little nuts and strangles his friend to death. And overhearing this, Arthur reminisces about the aftermath of his first kills as the Joker. And in court the following day, during his closing argument, and this is where the plot twist happens, Arthur renounces his Joker persona, and he actually takes full responsibility for his actions. Well, Harlequin doesn't really like this too much, and she storms out, and the jury finds Arthur guilty all 6 counts of murder because he admits that he killed his mom.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so instead of 5 deaths, there's 6. Yeah. As the foreman reads the verdict, a car bomb explodes outside the courthouse, killing and injuring numerous attendees and scarring half of Harvey Dent's face. So there you go. There's the start of... Yeah. So again, there's some cool Easter eggs. If you're a fan of the comics and you're kind of bummed about some of the movie, there is some Easter eggs for those who are a fan of the comic books. So in the chaos, he gets out of there, and he has a couple of followers who are dressed up in Joker attire helping him out with this. Again, we're talking about the media and people being obsessed with these serial killers.
Right.
And then he doesn't want to be in the vehicle with those guys. It kind of just disturbs him. Arthur's already disturbed, but he just wants nothing to do with the Joker persona anymore. So he kind of escapes from the vehicle, wanders through Gotham, and then he encounters Lee. Again, they don't really refer to her by name really, other than a couple like, oh, okay, they're talking about Harlequin.
Right, yeah.
So he encounters her outside of his old apartment, but she rejects him for renouncing his Joker persona and reveals that the pregnancy was another lie after promising him that she'll never lie again. So, right. I mean, in all actuality, his defense attorney was kind of his conscience that he was totally ignoring the whole time.
Right.
It's like, hey, I'm trying to put you in a better place where you're not harming yourself or others, and stay away from this manipulative, snobby, preppy girl who's just getting her kicks out, you know?
Right.
So it's interesting. Again, not like the Harley Quinn of the comic books.
No.
Not at all. No. Not at all. Just like we're not getting the same Joker. Because how often has a Joker renounced himself in the comic book stories?
Right.
Right?
I mean, I'm sure you can look through and
maybe
find a couple stories, but yeah.
So she rejects him for renouncing his Joker persona, and everything pretty much was a lie. She was just using him, manipulating him. And so the police apprehend Arthur and return him to Arkham. The next day, a young patient approaches Arthur, begins to tell him a joke before stabbing Arthur in the stomach. And as Arthur bleeds to death, the camera kind of blurs a little bit, but you see him carving a smile into his face.
Interesting.
So kind of an homage to The Dark Knight.
Right. Yeah, a scarred Joker.
Right.
Interesting.
So that's how the movie ends. Arthur's just bleeding to death.
Yeah.
And you hear some laughing.
So we have a new Joker, basically. Yeah.
Well, in all actuality, maybe it's like the Bond movies with Daniel Craig, the predecessor of what we now know as James Bond, like M, for instance.
Yep.
You know, Ralph Fiennes actually is the real M that we see in the other movies.
Right.
He's the true M character that we see, not Judi Dench. Well, that mental patient is the real Joker after all. And Arthur just inspired him, according to this universe anyways. So I didn't really care for the movie, Adam. It's pretty obvious I really didn't care for either Joker movie. I do give Todd Phillips credit, though, for really, like, taking some real risks in the plot twists, you know. And I do like how his satire on society as a whole, and how, you know, I understand most of us don't like the serial killers. We don't emulate them. We don't think they're heroes. But for some reason, in their own morbid way, the media makes them out to be troubled anti-heroes. And that's what Todd Phillips, again, whether he's right or wrong, that's his interpretation of it.
Right.
It's interesting. It's fascinating, that part of it. It's just the movie is just, I don't know. It's very underwhelming movie.
Yeah.
Just like the first Joker, I found was even the big reveal at the end and everything. It seemed very underwhelming, just like the other Joker movie. And it's obviously just as divisive as that movie was as well. Mm-hmm. And I know Lady Gaga's got a great singing voice, and she is recognizable, and that's why they use her in movies, and she really likes to be in movies. You know, I don't think she's as effective as an actress. Again, she can sing really well. She's got an amazing voice. Love or hate Lady Gaga.
Right.
She has got a great singing voice.
She's very talented. Yep.
You know, A Star is Born, I mean, she got Oscar nominated for actress, and to me, her performance was not that great.
Yeah.
She can sing. She wrote some of the music in the film. I think Bradley Cooper actually deserves all the credit for A Star is Born because he produced it. He wrote the screenplay. He directed, starred. He actually sang and wrote some of the music himself in the movie. So the real star of A Star is Born was always Bradley Cooper. But Lady Gaga, she's a bigger name.
Yeah.
But her movies, other than A Star is Born, her movies really bomb.
Yeah, I haven't really watched.
Well, House of Gucci, I don't know if you remember that.
No, I mean, like, I saw her appearance on American Horror Story.
Oh, that's right. She was on one of those episodes.
Yeah, that's where her acting started. I mean, I wasn't too impressed. So, I mean,
I give her credit. I respect. Hey, she's at least trying.
Sure.
But
definitely.
House of Gucci was another one of many Ridley Scott misfires that left a lot of people puzzled. Why?
Yeah.
And then now we have Joker 2, Folie à Deux, and it looks like that movie is on track to be a bomb. Because the movie, I read somewhere in one of the trade magazines, the movie has to make $500 million to break even. I don't see that happening with this one.
Well, probably not. And it's bad when this this movie seems to hit all the cultural and political check marks, and even still you're getting a negative review on Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah, you're kind of in trouble. Even when Rotten Tomatoes saying you suck.
Well, and again, there was really no point in it. I know was intended the first Joker was intended to be a standalone movie, and I know Warner Brothers had bigger plans for it to launch it into the DC Black. I guess they call it that because it's DC-based films unrelated to the DC extended universe.
Right.
Darker, more experimental in material. I mean, obviously, Christopher Nolan's, he was on track to do all, that was The Dark Knight, which was a darker, more intense Batman character. That's what those movies are based upon. And still to this day, I mean, if we talk about superhero films, in my opinion, as over the top as some of Christopher Nolan's story arcs tend to be, because to me, I think he doesn't trust his audience enough, and he over explains everything, and he puts too much into his movies, too much story that doesn't need to be in there. I still think the Dark Knight trilogy that he created and the 1978 Superman movie are the best superhero films I've ever seen.
Okay.
That's my opinion on it, and they've tried to keep that Christopher Nolan type of filmmaking alive when Zack Snyder took over, and just wasn't as good, wasn't as effective. And I know Todd Phillips probably didn't have those Nolan movies in mind, because I mean, you look at the first Joker, it's King of Comedy and Taxi Driver together in one movie. So I don't know. It's very divisive. I understand that. I'm not one of the fans of these Joker movies, but I think these movies will stand the test of time. They could potentially be cult classics.
Sure.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. How do you say a cult classic when you have the first one grossing over $1 billion?
Yeah.
It's hard to call a cult classic something like that, but I think that because the movie has so many naysayers to it, and it's very divisive. That's where I kind of think of cult movies as well.
Yeah.
Is they're not going to be, you either love it or hate it.
Yeah.
So I was not a fan of these two movies, but again, I do appreciate how Todd Phillips, his look on the different classes of society and everything. And actually, Bong Joon-ho, who won the Oscar for Parasite, made an argument saying, hey, if you can find a better movie about how society is, I'll openly admit it. And he saw the Joker, and he said he did it a lot better than I did. I disagree, but
right.
That's Bong Joon-ho praising Todd Phillips.
Yeah.
But yeah, Todd Phillips, I mean, love or hate the movies, he did create a world onto his own, that's for sure. And whether it's successful, that's like art. It's all subjective. But I wasn't a fan. But if you want to see Joker 2, Folie, Deux, I'd get out there, because from what I'm seeing, the movie's probably not going to be out there very long in the theaters.
It's flopping for sure.
Yeah, and again, it doesn't help. They announced the 4K and Blu-ray and all these other things, like literally before it goes into theaters.
Right.
And that doesn't help either.
Yeah.
Granted, the movie's going to probably still bomb, but you'd still make a few million more if you didn't tease other ways of watching it. Mm-hmm. So, Joker, Folie, Deux, wasn't a fan, but it's out there. Did you agree with what we were talking about, or did you actually love the movie? Hey, we love and welcome all opinions, and we love to discuss film. So comment below. reach out through Facebook, X, Instagram. Let us know what you think of Joker Folie à Deux. And you want to attack the way I pronounce it, you can do that too. Because I do have French in my blood, but I'm not that good. So, yeah, that's Joker Folie à Deux. Any final thoughts, Adam?
No, other than if you're going to see this movie and expect a DC comic book movie, you're probably going to be very disappointed. So just know what you're going to see before you see it.
Right. So again, let us know what you think about the Joker films in general. Reach out and subscribe so you never miss an episode on our YouTube channel.
We'll see you next time on Scared for Reals.